Welcome back. You're listening to Fight Extra on talkSPORT 2. Adi Oladipo, the great Gareth Davies. All right, let's get into the big news, which, look, we all knew was coming, but now finally has been confirmed. And I'm talking, was only confirmed 4 or 5 days ago, and that's that Canelo versus Crawford is done for September the 13th. Will be in Vegas and will be Netflixed. And finally, will be promoted by Dana White. So I guess all the dots have been ticked here now, Gareth. We're there. We know exactly what's happened.
Yeah, they've joined the dots up, like you say. The fascinating thing is that TKO, Dana White, Zuffa, or not, not called Zuffa anymore, are they? WWE's on Netflix, so it's a natural home for it. There's a relationship there. It's going to do massive numbers. Um, it's going to
Oh,
be,
okay. Wait. What's massive? What's
a
massive?
huge. What kind of massive?
Yeah.
Well, when we think about if Crawford Canelo was on, let's say, HBO or DAZN or the old Showtime, if they did 2.5, 3 million pay per view, then we'd be very pleased with that. But on Netflix, it'd probably be, I would say, 10 to 15 million.
Okay.
Maybe more.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think I'll get anywhere near. I really don't think I'll get anywhere near Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. I think because of Mike Tyson and because the following for Jake Paul, 50 million with him and his brother subscribers, and the resonance of Mike Tyson coming back and the peculiarity and the weirdness of the matchup and the promotion and who Mike Tyson is. I don't think you can get numbers like that with this matchup. It's a purist fight. It's not a global mainstream fight. It's a boxing match. It's not a huge appeal outside that, in my view.
No, I think your view's correct. I'd be if this wasn't, and I know you said 2 to 3 million if it was sort of old pay per view. I'd be
Mm.
astounded if it got anywhere near that. If I'm honest with you,
No, it
um,
would. It would.
I,
It
I,
would.
I, on what basis? I don't. What's the
It'll be
what's the
fully
what's the
promoted.
reason?
They'll put so much into the marketing and promotion of it. There's a three-city tour. Um, there'll be a huge Mexican audience for Canelo. Um, Crawford still isn't a massive draw in the United States in terms of mainstream crossover numbers. He's just getting there. Um,
I
it's
think
going
you need to have someone
to,
on one side that plays the role of the
yeah,
heel, to use
yeah.
the WWE analogy, right? The heel or the antagonizer. And you've got
Mm,
both of these guys that say, we don't need to do this because we're fighters. Like both of them, neither are playing the bad guy here.
mm, mm.
And I think that's a bit of an issue in terms of crossing over to the casual masses. And that's what you need, right? I mean, as you say, this is a hardcore boxing event, but in order to get those astronomical numbers, it needs to cross over. Jake Paul was willing to play the heel against Mike Tyson, and then they had that famous slap at the weigh-in. You're not going to get that between Canelo and Crawford. Like
No.
even the face-off isn't going to. They're not going to say anything, are they? At the face-off, let's be
Well, they're
honest, they're not
not
going to say much.
naturally disposed to be able to do that. Canelo responds. He's responded to certain fighters. He does when he's really irritated by them.
Yeah,
But in general, I mean, the one guy that's got the most out of him is Oscar De La Hoya at the press conference for Munguia and others. And who was it? Belanga? I can't remember who it was, where he was winding Canelo up and
yeah, the
said, "Put
Munguia fight.
on my name." Um, and Canelo lost it with him, calling him a. I'm not going to use the words in Spanish because they're not really broadcastable on talkSPORT, but he actually let rip at him. You this, that, and the other, and yeah, I just don't see it. Crawford's not a trash talker. I've seen the guys around each other so far. They're earning astronomical amounts of money. Um, do we? Is Netflix a pay per view event? I don't know the ins and
No,
outs. We'll probably
no,
find out. It's
no,
not a
it's
pay
not.
per view event. No.
No.
So Where do they make the money? Where do they make the money here? Is it
Well, advertisement, really, isn't it? On Netflix. I mean,
and new
I can imagine.
subscribers to Netflix?
Yes, good. That exactly that. Obviously, look, Mike Tyson, Jake Paul. I think that the largest number concurrently was 65 million in total. I think 130 million views. 65. So just to be clear, you think it will get 15? Like that's the kind of range you're looking at, 10 to 15.
What, 10 to 15 million? Yeah. But how many of those are new subscribers? Because if they're paying 10 quid to subscribe to Netflix for the night, which I think is something like that to subscribe, isn't it? I don't know what the deal is at the moment, but from that 65 million, if it was 15 million new subscribers, that's 150 million they made out of it, you know? So I think Netflix made huge amounts of money out of that event. Um, this isn't as big as that in mainstream crossover terms. This is not as big. It's a massive fight. It's a Sugar Ray Leonard's Marvin Hagler type matchup in terms of how good these people are in their own eras. Um, but Canelo sells. I mean, 30 million Mexicans watch him every time he fights because he's
Yeah.
adored in his own country. But has Terence Crawford ever broken the million mark in pay-per-view
No,
terms? I don't
he
think
hasn't.
so.
He hasn't. His biggest one obviously was Errol Spence, I think, which was about 600 to 700, which was a massive
Yeah,
fight. I mean,
yeah.
600 to 700 in today's world of fire sticks and illegal streaming is probably 1.5 million 10 years ago. So I do think he's a big seller, but not to the point of Jake Paul, or certainly not of Mike Tyson.
There was also an interesting story doing the rounds. I got a press release. If you stream Netflix in the UK without a TV license, they're saying you could be fined 1,000 quid. By the way, because it's still streaming TV apparently, which is fascinating. It's a legal morass at the moment, but some people don't watch TV anymore, do they? So that was fascinating for me. Look, I'm going to the press conference in Riyadh. It's the launch of I think a 3-city tour.
Mhm.
I think it's going to be fascinating. I can't wait to see Dana White, who I've known since 2005 and haven't seen for a few years now, because I haven't really done UFC coverage live in the media room with him for a while. Obviously, you work with Ariel Helwani. There have been some very interesting and big debates about how important the UFC is to Dana, or how important Dana is to the UFC right now. It's an interesting discussion right now. I think he's very important, and I don't see him going anywhere. But he's got the freedom to go where he wants. He's got the keys to the city with the company, and he can go there whenever he wants to, and he can be there whenever he wants to, and he's built this thing enormously. So looking forward to all of that and how that is done. Um, I've got to remark on Oscar De La Hoya's clapback, whatever it was, Tuesday or Thursday last week. You must have seen it.
Yeah.
Um, we don't have to do any Schadenfreude or enjoying what he was doing, but he was pretty harsh. He and Dana don't get on, obviously, do they?
No.
Um, but he is very amusing when he gets going, Oscar, to be honest.
Yeah. Well,
He's
I like the idea of someone that's almost,
challenging it, you
yeah,
know?
challenging it and free to kind of say what they want and
Yeah,
doesn't really care, which is quite refreshing in this sport where you've
I
got to be
agree.
very careful and walk on eggshells. And Oscar's like, F your eggshells. I kind of do whatever I want to do. So I don't necessarily mind it. On Dana, obviously Dana's someone that you would have known for what 2 decades or so. What would you make of? And yes, he's a boxing guy. I mean, he always likes to say he is a boxing guy because that was his first love. But nonetheless, he is now an MMA guy. He's the biggest MMA promoter of all time. What do you make of an MMA promoter promoting the biggest boxing event this century?
I don't think it's the biggest boxing event this century, first of all, by the way. Um, if they want to make it the biggest boxing event, they could possibly do that. But the biggest boxing event this century is easily Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather, and I was at that.
Okay. Regardless of that argument, what do you make of the MMA guy doing this
Well,
big boxing
well,
event?
Dana is genuinely. I know him well enough. I've been in his office many times. I've been around him many times. I've been around him enough to. He's genuinely a boxing guy from
Okay.
South Boston, from Boston, and I've bumped into him so many times at the big boxing events in Las Vegas as well. He's always at them. He doesn't miss the big events. He's very, very shrewd.
Mm.
He can study the top level. He knows how boxing works. He'll be able to put a team around him. They need the best matchmakers. They're going to need the best matchmakers. They're going to need relationships with the managers. They're going to need huge amounts of cash, and they're going to need the desire to go from bottom up as well as top down if they're going to make a success of it over the next 3 to 5 years. But they've got all of those things. He's
I
incredibly
just
driven, as is Turkey Al Sheikh. So they're gonna make a success of it in one way or another.
I just don't think Dana's stock is what it once was. And maybe that's because I align it to the UFC. Like if Dana White made this jump when he initially wanted to with the start of Zuffa Boxing a decade ago, when Dana was clearly the best promoter in any sports in the world, then it's like, okay, Dana White's coming and you're excited for it. I look at the way the UFC, I think, has fallen off a cliff in the last 2, 3 years, and now the jump to boxing's happening. And I'm like, well, you're not as hot as I think you once was. That's just my honest opinion. I think he was the best
Hang on,
promoter before.
I've got to correct you on that. They haven't fallen off a cliff. I think you and I both say they struggle with stars at the moment. They failed to keep John Jones and Conor McGregor through their peaks. They didn't fail to do it. Their careers disintegrated slightly after Conor fought Mayweather. It fell apart, but he fell apart. But you look at the money they're making as a company, it's still extraordinary. The growth of the company from 6 to 10 to 14 to 18 billion through Endeavor, the anointing of and the joining together with the WWE. As a commercial entity, it's still absolutely enormous. So they've only fallen off a cliff if you're casual about it. And I'm a little casual, and you're a little casual about it. We watch the big fights, don't we?
Yeah.
And I think that they haven't managed to get John Jones going, and I thought he was the biggest star they've ever had in lots of ways. But no, if Dana White puts his mind to it, a new challenge, I think he'll be brilliant at it. But I do agree, he's been talking about it for 10 years, but here was the perfect opportunity.
Yeah. Let's not forget some of the other challenges. That slap nonsense that he introduced as well. All right,
And
let's
what
hear from
into it?
let's hear from His Excellency Turkey Al Sheikh, who's called for undercard fighters. Like, where are you, undercard fighters? But he also wants talent on the undercard and not names. Let's hear from him.
It's happened. Canelo Crawford, 13th of September in Las Vegas. Thank you for everyone. Thank you, Canelo. Thank you, Crawford. Thank you, Netflix. Bella. Thank you, Bella. Thank you, all your team in Netflix. Thank you, Nick Khan, TKO. Thank you, Dana, my brother, who he will promote this fight with me. Thank you for Sila, Dr. Rakan, my old friend, Dr. Rakan. Thank you to Riyadh Season, Faisal. Thank you to Fatal Fury, SNK. Thank you to the Ring Magazine. Thank you for everyone. This is the biggest fight in boxing and in history in the last 10 years and maybe more. Thank you, Shepard, from the team of Canelo. Thank you, Ash, the Hunters. And this is very good opportunity for the talent in boxing. We will make the undercard all the undercard about talent, because we have the biggest fight. We don't need big fight in the undercard. For that, we will give the chance for the talent. If you think you are ready to be in the undercard of Canelo Crawford, come talk with us. And maybe you will have chance. Thank you, and see you in Vegas the 13th of September, inshallah.
TLKL Sheikh there, almost an open call to these fighters. If you are interested, get in touch, which is rare. I can imagine a lot of managers and promoters sort of picking up the phone saying, okay, I've got a fighter that I think you'll be interested in. What Jake Paul and Mike Tyson had was Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor as a chief support. I mean, it doesn't get bigger than that, to be honest. I do wonder if Oscar, right? Eddie, Bob, neither of who like Dana. Let's be honest, none of them guys really like Dana. I wonder if their fighters are going to be allowed to fight on this. Like, it's gonna be fascinating because you mentioned earlier that Oscar doesn't get on with Dana. I mean, Bob Arum certainly doesn't, and Eddie and Dana seem to be having a little quiet feud as well. I do wonder if we're going to get any of those fighters from those stables on this undercard.
Well, if it works for the fighters and it works for the promoters, they will. It's as simple as that. Whether they want to let them go or not I think is irrelevant here, because if the managers believe that it works for them, I think Frank, Eddie, Bob, Oscar will allow their fighters to go with them. I don't think it'll herald schism between them, because I think they will want to be able to cooperate, because it will bring big rewards to their fighters. They might not have to sign with TKO. For me, it depends whether TKO agree to take on fighters who are with another promoter and still in a deal with another promoter. That remains to be seen. That's a very good question for the press conference on Friday, actually.
Will you ask it?
Of course I will.
That's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear.
I have no allegiance to anyone that I can't ask any question there. I don't work for Ring Magazine. I don't work for Frank Warren or Eddie Hearn I want to ask some questions. I want to ask some serious questions, how they really think this is going to work. As I said, they've got the aptitude, the money, and all those things to make it work. Whether they make it work or not is yet to be seen.
All right, stick with us. We're going to hear from a man who has quite a few big heavyweights in his stable. I'm talking about Ben Davison. He was on Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan and Spencer Oliver. We're going to react to what he said next. Welcome back. You're listening to Fight Night Extra on talkSPORT 2. Adi Oladipo and the great Gareth Davies. All right, an interesting figure came into the talkSPORT studios the other day. Ben Davison, obviously the trainer of quite a few of the big named heavyweights in the country. I read out a few a few moments ago. Moses Itauma being maybe the star pupil now, I guess. Anthony Joshua, who we wait to see what will happen next. And Fabio Wardley coming off that incredible, crazy fight against Justice Hooney. Before we get into what we think of Ben Davison and Gareth, let's hear from Ben. He kind of went back and forth with Spencer Oliver and Simon Jordan.
Well, Daniel's going to fight.
Do I want to see him fight the winner?
Correct.
Well, of course, I'd like for him to have a heavyweight world title shot.
Sure, but next?
I'm not a massive one on the whole, everybody needs activity. He hasn't been because of the injury and that, so it's not ideal.
So do you want him to have a tune-up fight? Like Deontay Wilder?
I mean, it's hard to say Deontay Wilder's a tune-up fight. I know what you're saying, where he's at now.
What's left of Deontay Wilder is, yeah.
But... yeah, I don't know. It's a discussion that would need to happen. But I know that his goal is he would like to become a free-time.
Would you be influential in that decision-making process?
Yeah, of course they would ask me, what do I think? Do I think this is a good opponent? Etc. etc.
Very interesting words from Ben Davison there about AJ. I mean, you've spoken about AJ at length, right, for so long. Will he come back? Won't he come back? Will he fight Fury? And Ben there basically saying that AJ wants a world title fight, but also that a tune-up might be right after a long spell out. What is a tune-up for AJ? What does that even mean? Like, is it a Jermaine Franklin type? A Hellenius type again? What's the tune-up?
The tune-up is the fight with Deontay Wilder, basically. And obviously, as we know, Deontay Wilder fights the weekend after next against Herndon, and I think he wins that. I was watching Deontay Wilder's quite upset at the moment. So there's snakes all around him, people that have been disloyal to him. He needs to be strong. I think that's a tune-up, in my view, I'd like to see, because I consider that to be a tune-up. It's a shootout, but it's a shootout that Anthony Joshua would be the favourite. And I agree with Ben. He's not only been out for a long time, his confidence will have been dented by that fight with Daniel Dubois 9 months ago now. It's 9 months, by the way. But what I also liked, I did see a little section of that interview, or a little clip, that Ben Davison explained to Simon and to Spencer about rolling the dice. Remember Ben got a lot of criticism for saying roll the dice. Well, he explained it was code. Did you know about this?
I only knew after watching the clip you're talking about.
Yeah, that it was code. I mean, I thought it was the right thing to do at the time anyway, because I thought he was getting battered. And if he got a foothold in the fight, you and I have had a back and forth on this as well. And so I have with Spencer. It was the right thing to do to gamble. Rolling the dice was getting in close and throwing the uppercut. And that was the rolling the dice, time to roll the dice, because they'd found that there was an uppercut to land on Dubois that could finish him. And as we know, AJ's uppercut is unbelievable. As it was, it just failed him. Now, look, I'm a huge advocate of Ben Davison. I love the fact that he's got Fabio Wardley, Moses Itauma, and Anthony Joshua at the same time at the moment. As I say, I hope they come in different shifts in the gym, because they're all at different stages. You've got beginning, middle, and end, haven't you, of heavyweight careers.
Yeah.
I think Fabio deserves to be 7 or 8, by the way, in the top 10 at the moment, after pulling victory from the jaws of defeat the other day. I think Ben, I've always enjoyed Ben. I got very close to him when he was looking after Tyson Fury. And to me, he's an outstanding trainer who I think will be one of the greatest in the world as he gets into his mid to late 30s.
Yeah, look, I agree. I think he's a great trainer. Honestly, I think he's great. I think that team of just him and Lee Wiley, they're almost bringing in sort of statistics that we don't really see with trainers. They're bringing it like you would in sort of American football or football into boxing, which I think's smart. And look, you can only work with what you've got. And I think he's got a fantastic camp as well. We mentioned the heavyweights. He's got some really good fighters below that. Let's not forget Lee Wood and sort of Pat McCormack's in there as well. So it's a really good stable. As for AJ, it's not going to be a world title shot next. I mean, that means Usyk or Dubois. I don't think it's going to be that next. I don't mind seeing the Wilder one. Now you've mentioned it. Wilder does fight a week on Saturday. And if Wilder looks good, go for it. I mean, it's been the one thing there. It's been Fury or Wilder, Fury or Wilder. We're not getting Fury, then just give me Wilder then. And let's have a shootout.
But Anthony Joshua shouldn't have to wait for Tyson Fury to make a decision on coming back. He needs to move on. If it never happens, it never happens. But, you know, if Tyson Fury doesn't want to fight him, fair enough, leave it. Move on, because Anthony Joshua wants to have 2 or 3 more fights in his career. Yes, he's at the tail end. And yes, I agree with you with Ben Davison, Lee Wiley. They're forensic in their analysis of other fighters, aren't they? They truly go into the forensics on it. The movement when they throw. I have sat down before and spoken to both men, Wiley and Davison, about this. And I think they are very new school in the way they do things, even they go about it in an old school manner. I agree. Let's get AJ back as soon as possible. He's had the operation on his elbow, his hand, whatever it was. Let's get him back in there, because he's still a huge money seller, a very popular fighter, and he's one of the best finishers in the world when he's on top.
Okay, Ben also pivoted into talking about the future, and you mentioned it, Moses Itauma. Obviously, Moses Itauma will fight Dillian White. It will headline the card in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. This is what Ben had to say about Moses.
Dillian Whyte fight's been signed with a really good undercard. This fight, Ben, right fight for him at the right time? Moses?
I think it's a good name in terms of it being at the right time. I don't think the timing is too much of a factor. I don't think Moses needs to catch anybody at a certain point in their career or anything like that.
Why is that?
Because I think he's good enough. I think he's plenty good enough. I think he's a generational talent, and I think it's going to take time for everybody to see that. But I think everybody can see that he has the potential.
Can you tell that, even though he's not been in against the levels that determine those outcomes? Because he's been in against various levels, and obviously a lot's made of the performance against Dempsey McKean, a lot's made of the performance against Marius Wack. I don't know how impressed I was against the Balogun performance, because to me it looked like a guy that wasn't anywhere near his level. But as a trainer, can you already make that sort of claim and go, forget about it, this is a generational talent, even though he hasn't been in against the levels? Yeah,
there's still things to be done to, you still have to go out there and do the things to be that, and to be able to claim that that is what you are. But obviously I get a chance to see him a lot more in the gym than everybody else does. And I know that there isn't much, if ever, been a heavyweight that has the capabilities that he's got.
He's right, isn't he? Generational talent. He is correct. And look, it's fantastic matchmaking as well. Moses, I said this to someone the other day. We know Moses because we think he's a superstar. It's now a case of more than just boxing fans knowing Moses. Everyone knows who Dillian is. And it's almost a bit of, he can almost take a lot of Dillian's fans and that fan base by beating Dillian. So I think it's good matchmaking. But if you're Dillian, you're thinking, okay, let's see what this young upstart has. I'm an experienced pro. I'm a veteran. I think it's a tough night for Dillian, but I mean, if you're going to get Moses, you're going to get him now. You don't certainly want to fight Moses in 2 years' time. Fight him now where we're still a bit wet behind the ears. But I think this is good matchmaking, and I'm expecting Moses to look sensational as he headlines for the first time as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is a must-be. Look, it's a great opportunity for Dillian Whyte, because I'm just looking here at the WBO rankings. Joseph Parker's the interim. Alexander Usyk's the champion. Who's at one, Eddie, in the rankings?
Moses.
So this is, I don't necessarily agree with that, by the way. WBC, number one is Lawrence Okoli. IBF, number two is Derek Chisora. WBA, number two, Michael Hunter.
Crazy rankings.
I mean, it's. I want to swear it's so ridiculous, but there's a couple of things. For Dillian Whyte, if he beats Moses, straight up there. So there's jeopardy for Moses, and there's an opportunity for Dillian. Moses, I've moved to my number 10 in the world in the heavyweight rankings, by the way, because I think he deserves to be there on talent alone. But I also think that you said it a couple of weeks ago or last week. I can't remember which show we were on. It was a perfect way of putting it. You want to see, I said about the presence of Dillian Whyte and his intimidating nature, and you said, I want to see him old man him. I want to see him use all those old man skills. And it was a great top line for our show, and I think they used it as a top line. That's what we need from Dillian. I want to see Moses under pressure. I want to see him hit by that big left hook. But I also believe that Moses Itauma will finish this fight before the first half, because I think Moses' hand speed is probably and arguably the quickest in the heavyweight division.
Yeah.
So, and I think that will be the telling factor, as I think Crawford with Canelo. Crawford's hand speed will be quicker than Canelo. And speed and timing beats everything else in boxing. And I think that's what Moses will do. It's a great piece of matchmaking, in my view. Cannot wait to be there. He headlines for the first time, and it's Riyadh, isn't it? And I'm glad they've made it the headliner.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what fans travel for this one. On the undercard, Nick Ball versus Sam Goodman. Remember, that's Nick Ball defending his WBA featherweight world title. Kakache versus Ray Ford is an incredible matchup in the super featherweight division. This one came from nowhere. Filip Hrgović versus David Adeleye. Bear in mind, we thought Adelaide was fighting Jimmy TKV, Philip Hrgovic coming off that Joe Joyce win. That's intriguing because that's David Adelaide announcing himself at the top table of the heavyweight division. I mean, Hrgovic, I still think is very, very good, serviceable. And Adelaide is now saying, okay, I'm above the British scene. Give me a ranked name. And now he's got someone.
Absolutely. Look, it's a massive opportunity for David Adelaide. He had to refine himself after that defeat to Fabio Wardley. Very odd fight with Jamie TKV a couple of months back. Philip Hrgovic against David Adelaide. 2 words. This is what we use with heavyweight fights sometime. Fun fight. Simple as that. Fun fight.
Yeah, indeed. Let's wrap on this one. You're talking about fun fights. A man that I think deserves to be more widely known than he is, and that's Galal Yafai, who fights this weekend in Birmingham. Galal coming off that good Sonny Edwards win. And I think maybe because Sonny retired after, Galal's not getting the credit he deserves for that win. Every time you beat a fighter and then they retire, it's like, okay, the fighter was done anyway. Whereas I just thought Galal was just almost superhuman that night. And, in the past, Gareth, you win an Olympic gold medal, it kind of propels you to the masses. And here we are, Olympic gold medalists. And I don't think it's happened with Galal as yet. And I don't know why. Maybe it's his personality. Galal openly doesn't really say much. I mean, he would admit to that. I think he's a fantastic fighter. I know Eddie's got big plans if he does come through the weekend to take him to America to really take on some of the best sort of super flies and flyweights.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, he's 9-0 after Olympic gold. I've always been a fan of the Yafai brothers, all 3 of them. I think they're a phenomenal family. Obviously, he gets to fight in Birmingham, in his hometown. I say 9-0. I really like this fight with Francisco Rodriguez Jr. because, I think it's the interim WBC, isn't it? Flyweight title.
Yeah.
I really like Rodriguez, 46-fight veteran at the age of 32. He's just failed at world level at Superfly, I think. It's a really good fight. Strong Mexican fighter. Galal's got who has it? Terence Crawford, Vasyl Lomachenko, Alexander Usyk. They are come forward aggressive southpaw counterpunchers, and he's got the perfect style to bring it. And I'm really looking forward to the fight. We've got a great month coming up, my friend. Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, Shakur Stevenson, William Zepeda, Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois. We've got this weekend, but we have got a great month coming up after a lot of traveling around the world, you and I, because it never stops.
Doesn't stop. Boxing is a busy business at the moment. There was a time when it used to kind of stop in the summer and restart again in the autumn. Now it's a 12-month business all over the world, and I think everyone is enjoying it. All right, you've been listening to Find Out Extra on talkSPORT 2. Big thanks, as always, to my man Gareth. Travel safe, sir. Enjoy the rest of your time in Bangkok. Enjoy Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Remember, if you've missed any of this show, you can listen to it as a podcast. Find it under the Fight Night banner on the talkSPORT app, on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast from. We'll be back next week.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app, and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.